Hey folks, after using the Reverb on my Trek for quite a while, I decided that I could use a new dropper. In this case is a full line dropper from 9point8. As you probably know, they designed a technology that's being shared by Raceface and Easton, and it uses what's called the drop lock, so this is not a hydraulic dropper post. My golden standard right now, if I can call that, is the KSLEV 150 that's installed on my smuggler. You can see it here. Is really nice and smooth, really smooth. You can hear when it reaches the full extension. You can see the southpaw remote here and how it fits my hand pretty perfectly, I would say. But unless you're just replacing like for like, when it comes to selecting a dropper post, there's a few things that you have to do. First of all, put out the pen and paper, take a tape measure and start measuring. Just to make it easy to set up your cockpit afterwards, measure the tip of your saddle to the stem. With your saddle at the climbing height, start measuring from the rails all the way up here to the collar. In my case, it's exactly 10 inches or 25.5 millimeters. And also have to know the overall length of your dropper. In my case, it's 375. So I know my dropper comes down to here with the coupling coming down a little bit more. I am interested in getting 150 millimeter, but 150 millimeter travel up here is also longer, so you need a longer piece fitting into your frame. So my big dilemma in this case was, can I actually fit my 440 millimeter in here and still have room for the cable coupling at the bottom of the dropper post? Most of full suspension bikes will have this issue. So try and talk to the manufacturer, or actually just try yourself or measure how far down you can fit your seat post into the frame. So as I was trying to decide if I take the gamble with the 440 or I just get a straight replacement 125 mil drop, I remember that I knew Jack, one of the owners of 9point8, since they sponsored the local race series. So here I am in my car driving west of Toronto for about an hour to Ancaster. That's where 9point8 is based out of. Not only that he waited for me with a 375 and a 440 dropper, he also helped me make the decision based on the right fit and gave me a little tour of their operation. He gave me a lot of details about how this dropper was built and how we're supposed to get the best out of it. So here are all the juicy details. I have posted a separate video for the unboxing of the dropper, as well as the details of the new digit remote and the installation of the actual remote. Cable provided is a 1.6 meter long Jaguar Lex SL, and here you can see the whole assembly that gets connected to the bottom of the dropper post. The inner wire is just a normal steel cable. I'm going to replace it with this Teflon cable. Two set screws that you see here on the quick connect, these are used for all the other remotes, but not for the digit. So for this particular installation, take your 2mm Allen key, remove these two set screws and just discard them. So the 1.6 meter of housing provided seems to be barely enough for what I need, but here is routed nicely through the frame. Quite a bit of slack here in case I over-rotate my handlebars. So the three pieces installed here are your cable seal nut, and if you pay attention, there's an O-ring in there just so it doesn't fall into the frame as you have it here. Then you have your quick connect and the T-nut. T-nut has a thread in here. This one gets threaded onto the housing. However, before you do that, you push it into the quick connect and you thread it in now, all the way in until it buttons out. Next, I have to figure out the actual final length of the cable housing. So I'm gonna screw this onto the dropper post. The trick is here, when you install the quick connect onto the dropper, you rotate the dropper. When you install the cable seal nut onto the bottom of the dropper, you rotate the cable seal nut. By the way, this is optional, so if you're space constrained, you can actually install the dropper without this cable seal nut. So now with those good measurements that I made initially, remember, from the saddle rail down to the collar, I inserted my dropper all the way, and now I'm ready to actually cut my housing. Measure once, twice, 3 times before you cut it. Done. And use the supplied cable ferrule just to finish it. Next thing to do is to remove your dropper, because now you have the cable jacket linked. Feed the cable through the quick connect end. It goes through the middle of that T-nut. Reinstall the dropper. Remember, quick connect stays in place. You just rotate the dropper snug, and then cable seal nut. Finally, before you feed your cable through, just use a 2.5 mil to unscrew this cable set screw a little bit. Just make room for your inner cable, and then take this barrel adjuster, so turn it clockwise all the way in, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns out. Fit the cable through, and as you push it through the barrel, then you push it here into the lever. Last thing, put a bit of tension onto your cable. Use the same 2.5 millimeter hex and just tighten your cable here. Seat post is up right now. Seat post down. Make sure that you have a bit of play as well. Not that much play at the bottom. Perfect. Last thing to do, finally trim the inner cable and use one of the fancy colored cable ends that you have in your toolbox. The only sealed chamber in this dropper post is an air spring. Shredder valve, 20 to 40 psi's. It comes with about 38, I think. What it does, it just helps your dropper to lift up when you release the brake. The dropper head is quite innovative. This is the inline, so 0 offset. They have another one with offset, I think it's 25 mil offset. The innovative part is that it has 2 screws here, so if you want to adjust the tilt on your saddle fore aft, you use these 2 screws, 5 Newton meters maximum torque. To actually keep the saddle in place, you have the side screws, and again it's a 4 millimeter Allen key, again 8 to 12 Newton meter torque. All the hardware on this dropper's head is titanium coated. So I asked them and they told me that there is no anti-seize or grease needed for any of their bolts as long as you torque them properly. I put a bit of grease on my saddle rails, and if you want to adjust the pressure here, you don't have to actually touch the fore aft adjustment of your saddle. All you have to do, just loosen up one side, remove one other side, lift up the saddle just like you see me doing it now, and you are good to go. So I thought that was pretty cool. So the way you use this, but as it gets tighter, let's see, 12. I think I'm getting close to it. It's good enough if you don't have a torque key at home. So you guys have seen the install. Not a big deal. Operation is really smooth. You can hear a little bit of a top out bumper. One last thing that you might have to do is either with the saddle raised like this or sitting on the saddle to the trailhead, what you might have to do is what's called brake reset. The symptoms that you will see are that the dropper doesn't engage or has a little bit of sag. To do it, hold down the lever for 10 seconds, and that's pretty much it. All you're doing is equalizing the pressure inside of the drop lock, the brake itself. And this can be needed when you let it sit for a long time unused, or when you have huge temperature swings. Think about taking your bike out of the house and riding it in winter. The side-to-side movement here is kept to a minimum, and you can see it up or down is a tiny bit. It's a bit less than what I had on other droppers, mostly because the way they designed the keys that are here on the lower part of the dropper are spring activated, and the other pretty interesting thing about that one is that they adjust for wear. Just like many other droppers, this is going to need some sort of a maintenance here for the upper bushing and wiper seal. How do you know when that's needed? When your dropper starts to extend slower with no other changes to the dropper itself, you know that it's time to perform that. Showed you guys that I bought this. This is called the P10L grease. This grease, what's specific about it is the fact that it's not necessarily made to be very greasy if you want. This is lithium based with a lot of additives just to be a bit more clingy to the surfaces. As I was thinking about a conclusion for my video, I realized that I love this feature the most. The fact that I can lift the bike off the saddle. You can handle it pretty much like a bike with no dropper post. That's because the drop lock, the mechanical brake in here in the upper tube, only locks this shaft in place, so it doesn't matter if you push on it or pull on it, you won't cause any damage. There's no IFB, there's no oil involved. So all good and well, but I discovered my list of wants before I even decided on the 9.8 dropper. And the first thing was to make sure that it's a reliable and easy to maintain dropper. These guys from 9point8 are testing their droppers to 100,000 actuations. A RockShox Reverb B1 is tested to about 15K. Easy to maintain. You only have the seals for the air spring, and that's pretty much it. There's videos online. You have parts. Easy to do, I believe. Not too porky, talking about weight obviously, and better than Reverb and better 1X remote. The whole 9.8 dropper installed is 60 grams heavier than the Reverb, but I gained another inch of travel here to get the saddle out of the way, and I have a much better remote that is actually has good ergonomics and it fits me very well. Good local support. These guys have built a reputation for support, for good support, and they're local to me, so another thumbs up. Finally, the 4-season performance, and they do test it down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. There's no oil in it to get thicker, so hopefully everything is going to work just fine. And remember, you might need to perform that brake reset when you have temperature swings like that. So yeah, what do I think about this dropper after riding it for a couple weeks? Installation was easy, documentation is awesome. You can see all kind of details in here about the product. The remote became second nature. The dropper works just fine, so the fact that I don't think about it when I'm riding, I guess is a good thing. One thing that I noticed is that it's not as loud as the KS Lev, so I have to trust it to be there. But all in all, I'm very happy with this. It's been a great experience to me from start to finish, buying it, installing it, and even reviewing it. I've had a lot of fun. If you guys have questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them as usual. Don't forget to keep an eye on my channel, like the video, and until next time, hope to see you guys on the trails. Cheers.